students, welcome to term 3 of the last week for the lesson. When I revising previous lesson, in generally we discussed about phylum vertebrate or phylum chorodatas. Those phylums are derived from the term notochord or backboned animals. All are triploplastic, coelomate and bilateral symmetric animals. They have a hollow nerve cord above the notochord, and also phylum vertebrates have endoskeleton or internal skeleton made of bones or cartilage. They do have a closed circulatory system, a well-developed nervous system, and 2 pairs of limb. But phylum vertebrates have a unique characteristics because their body is generally categorized into n numbers, as known as bilaterally symmetric. And when you come to this class, phylum vertebrates are categorized into a number of 5 classes: class species or the fish, class amphibians or amphibia, class reptilia or reptiles, class aves or birds, and class mammalia or mammals. When you come to the first class, when you see class species or fishes are aquatic dwellers. They live in water except the lungfish, and they have a streamlined body with their scales on their skin, and they use mainly gills for their gases exchange and have a lateral line system for hearing, and also fishes have fins for swimming. This fish class is again categorized into two subclass, which are called bony fish and cartilaginous fish. Bony fish are bony in the skeleton or a bony scales on their skin, rather than cartilaginous fish, which have a placoid scales on their skin and are made up of cartilage with a fleshy fins. Mainly they undergoes by having gas exchange by gill, and also class cartilaginous fish have no opercula or gill covers, but have gill slit, rather than which are bony fish. Bony fish have opercula or gill covers that can cover their gill. And there is another difference between the two is their size of tail. The tail size of bony fish are equal. We call it homocercal tails, and the size of tail for cartilaginous fish are not equal or not equally sized. We call it heterocercal tail. As example, you can take as sharks. Sharks have heterocercal tails. So this is how we can identify the difference between the two. Nextly, we discussed yesterday about class amphibia or amphibians. They are found in both aquatic and terrestrial dwellers. The gills have gas exchange whenever they are in a larval stage, and adult stage is mainly breathed by mouth, the skin, and the lung. And also they undergoes external fertilization. Since they are ectothermic, they do not regulate their own body temperature, means that they depend on the environmental temperature. And there is a contrast between frog and toad, what have been discussed in the yesterday class. Thirdly, we discussed about class reptilia. The reptiles, they are mainly terrestrial animals, which are dominant animals on the land. They have a dry skin, waterproof, and scales on their body. Mainly their gas exchanges by lung, and have bony skeleton with their 4 limbs except snakes. And reptiles undergoes internal fertilization. They lay their eggs, and they are ectothermic without larval stage and external air. Fourthly, we discussed about class aves or the birds. Birds, their body is covered with feathers. They do have a waterproof on their skin, the gas exchanges by lung, and have scales on their legs. And also they have light skeletons. Due to this reason, they fly on the air. A bony skeleton. They have 2 pairs of, means 1 pairs of limb or leg, and they also have a horny beak in their mouths since they are toothless, and endothermic with a high parental care. These are class aves or the birds. And finally, we discussed about chapter 5. Last topic is class Mammalia or the mammals. Mammals are best known of all animals. They are true mammals. They are true mammals produce milk for their its young in mammary gland, and their body is covered with hair, and their skin with sebaceous sweet and mammary gland, and they have a bony skeleton with 4 limbs, and mainly gas exchanges occurs by lung, and also most mammals have a uterus within the body for developed young. And finally, we discussed about subdivisions of mammals: egg-laying mammals, which can lay eggs, and marsupials, which produce immature young, which are nourished by milk in the pouch or marsupium, and higher mammals or placental mammals develop their uterus for the young or produce fully developed young, which are nourished by milk from the mammary gland. And finally, bats are flying mammals that are adapted to fly through the air on their laser wings. So those are totally about the last topic of chapter 5, and totally we finished unit 5. And today we are going to discuss about the new chapter 6, biotic and abiotic component of ecosystem, food chain and food web relationship, and thirdly ecological pyramids. Those are topics or lesson to be covered on today's lesson. The objective of the lesson: at the end of this section, you are expected to define the term ecosystem and describe its components, explain the food relationship between organisms, and also identify the difference between the 3 ecological pyramids. When you come to the new part of the lesson, unit 6, which says environment. So here below are the terminologies which have to be taken into an account while dealing with the environment. 6.1 is the ecosystem. Your textbook says ecosystems are refers to the animals and the plants that live in an area along with their things that can affect them is called ecosystem. Ecology is the science that deals with the relationship among organisms to one another and to their physical environment. We call it ecology is one of a branch of biological science, but ecologists are scholars or persons that can study not only how individual organisms within a population interact, but also, more importantly, how the different populations interact with each other. They can study, so we call it, those are ecologists or biologists or scholars. Environment is an organism's home and it is surrounding. Habitat is the specific place where an organism lives is called habitat. Those habitats may be aquatic or terrestrial, as you know from chapter 5. And niche is a pattern of living of organisms in an ecosystem. So those are the terminologies which are starting the lesson. Nextly, ecosystems have 2 components, which are biotic and abiotic component. The first ones are biotic components. Those 2 components, by the way, are factors that affect the ecosystem. So the biotic component of an ecosystem are the living component of an ecosystem. They are biological factors of an ecosystem, and they directly or indirectly affect the life of an organism in an ecosystem. They include autotrophs, heterotrophs, decomposers, and competition. So these biotic or biological factors, which are categorized into autotrophs, are producers, green plants or algae, and heterotrophs are consumers, herbivores, omnivores, carnivores or scavengers, and the decomposers are bacteria and fungi. Finally, competitions are intraspecific or interspecific competition. If the competition is intraspecific, which means that the competition between organisms of the same species. they can compete for food, or they can compete for territory, or they can compete for finding mates. We call it intra-specific. And the next type of competition is inter-specific competition, which is the competition between organisms of different species. Those are for predation or for symbiotic or mutualistic relationship to live together. So this is what's the difference between autotrophs, heterotrophs, decomposers, and the competition of biotic components. So as example, plants, animals, disease. Plants are for autotrophs, animals for heterotrophs, disease for decomposers, and symbiosis for competition. Again, the next type of ecosystem factor or component is abiotic. Those are the opposite of biotic. As the non-living component of an ecosystem are also said to be physical components. They are called physical components, and they are directly or indirectly affect the life of an organism in an ecosystem. Those abiotic components include edaphic factors like soil, pH, mineral salts, and trace elements, and climatic factors like temperature, sunlight, oxygen, carbon dioxide, humidity, wind, and air movement. And also topographic factors are included in abiotic component, which are altitude and latitude. So those are examples what I have listed as before. Generally, habitat may be terrestrial and aquatic. If the habitat is terrestrial, which is on land, maybe arboreal or ground or underground. Arboreal means type of terrestrial in which they live in or on trees. It's called arboreal, and ground or underground. So those are two types of terrestrial habitat. And if it is aquatic, aquatics are marine and freshwater. If it's marine, on water bodies, which are salt water of seas and oceans. And if it is freshwater, which are lake, pond, rivers and streams are listed on the freshwater aquatic habitat. So those are the two categories of habitats. The next part of the lesson we are going to discuss is 6.2 is food relationship. Plants are vitally important in an ecosystem. They are producers of an organic matter called glucose by photosynthesis process. They photosynthesize to produce their own food. They are therefore autotrophs or phototrophs, which are called plants. Autotrophs means they are self-food feeders or producers, which are called phototrophs, or they are photosynthetic groups, means that in another words they are light feeders or inorganic feeder. Organs make their own food, like algae, green plants are autotrophs. And this role of plants is to maintain the balance of gases in the atmosphere, because they give off oxygen and by taking in carbon dioxide. So the oxygen we inhale is due to the presence of plant. So plants maintain the balance of oxygen gas in the atmosphere. On another hand, there are animals which feed on plants are called herbivores. So those herbivores are grouped under heterotrophs. Heterotrophs are different food feeders. Heterotrophs means they are consumers. Heterotrophs are chemotrophs, non-photosynthesizing groups, or they are parasitic or saprophytic group, chemical feeders, organic feeders, organs that do not make their own foods, which rely on autotrophs, are called heterotrophs. So those heterotrophs are herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, detritivores, and decomposers. So lakes that feed on autotrophs like mammals, insects. Animals which feed on other animals are called carnivores. Or as example, lions, eagle, shark, or flesh eaters. They are called flesh eaters, which are known as carnivores, like predators. they feed on flesh. Animals which feed on both meat and the grass are called omnivores. They are man, pig, bears or koala bear. All animals therefore are heterotrophic organisms because they depend on autotrophs. The next we continue is animals that feed on dead and waste organic matters are called detrivores or scavengers, like hyena and vultures. Organisms that absorb digested nutrients which broken down dead and waste organic matter outside their bodies are decomposers, like bacteria and fungi are the commonly known examples of decomposers. There are also other organisms which can get energy by breaking down sulfur containing chemicals called chemotrophs. So there are two types of food relationship in an ecosystem, which are food chain and food web relationships. So food chain is the straight food relationship or the direct food relationship in an ecosystem in which organism eats only one organism and is being eaten by only one organism. We call it food chain, direct feeding relationship, or it is the simple feeding relationship between plant and animal is called food chain. Means that firstly they convert light energy from the sun into they store the chemical energy in plant by photosynthesis. This is always done by plants, which are called producers. Then all of the animals that eat plants or other animals are called consumers. This is mainly done by trophic levels. So the first stage of food chain is conversions of radiant energy and chemical energy by green plant, and the sum of the chemical energy produced by green plant is transferred to primary consumers, which may be herbivores or omnivores. Then some of the energy therefore continues to be transferred into secondary consumers, which may be either carnivores or omnivores. At the end of trophic level there are producers, not producers, they are decomposers, Decomposers are used to break down the remains of plant and animal, play a vital role in recycling mineral ions. Bacteria and fungi are typical examples of decomposers. So generally in trophic levels are feeding levels or different levels within a food chain. So firstly there is a producer, then primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, quaternary consumer, and so on, which is denoted by is eaten by. Producers are eaten by primary consumers are eaten by secondary consumers consumer is eaten by tertiary consumer is eaten by quaternary consumers. Let's as example, there is a banana and a human. So banana is producer, which is plant, human is heterotrophs or consumer. So banana is eaten by human, or human was eats banana. But not all food chain involve peoples. So generally there is a food chain at different levels of trophic levels. So the simplest food chain contains at least two trophic levels. Example, grass, cow, human. Grass is producer, then a rabbit is primary consumer, flea. So this is secondary consumers. How they go on. The next type of food relationship is food web, which is very complicated and a complex type of food relationship in an ecosystem. It's called food web. So this is one organism can eat more than one animal. It in turn might be eaten by many other animals. Example, this is, let's say there is a plant here, again a plant here another autotrophs. So this autotroph is eaten by zebra, then zebra is eaten by, let's say, a hyena. Again hyena is taken or eaten by oil or birds. Finally they are taken by decomposers. So this is the cycle how it continues. Let's say again another example. Here producers or plants is eaten by zebra. Zebra is eaten by tiger. Tiger is again taken by decomposers. Again here there is another relationship with elephant, with hyena, with a rabbit, oil, and so on. This is very complicated feeding relationship, which is called food web, which is more complex feeding levels within an ecosystem, or it is a network of food chain. We call it food web. It is too much complicated feeding relationships between animal and plant. The next topic we are going to discuss, the third part, is ecological pyramids. Ecological pyramid is the trophic structures of an ecosystem. Is called tropical pyramids. So this ecological pyramids have a number of categories. Before we discuss that, let's see about how they occurs, how they happened. Radiation from the sun is the source of energy for all communities of living organisms. The energy is stored in the form of substance within the body of plant. This new plant material adds to the already existing biomass. Biomass therefore describes all the organic material produced by all living organisms. So biomass then passes into the body of all organisms through the process of food chain and food web. There are the total of 3 ecological pyramids: pyramid of energy, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of number. Pyramid of energy means the amount of energy produced at each trophic level, or the energy flows in one direction or unidirection only in a trophic level, which is not recycled, means that it is linear and mainly measured by calorimeter or kilojoule meter square. This is how from producer to primary consumer, then secondary consumer, the amount of energy from first trophic level to last trophic level decrease. Again, the reverse is true, which means from first trophic level or the last trophic level to the first trophic level, pyramid of energy increase. The second one is pyramid of biomass. Biomass is the total amount of organic matter or the dry mass of tissue of an organism at each trophic level. This biomass is mainly lost in each trophic level by urine or feces. Again, heat from respiration. The biomass is removed or released, and this pyramid of biomass from first trophic level to the last trophic level, it is decreased, and from the last trophic level to the first trophic level, pyramid of biomass increase. This is how we can identify their difference. Again, finally, pyramid of numbers is the number of organisms at each trophic level. So this pyramid of numbers from first trophic level to the last trophic level, it is decreased, and from last trophic level to first trophic level, it is increased. So when you generalize those the 3 pyramids, pyramid of energy, biomass, and the number, from first trophic level to the last trophic level, they decrease, and the reverse is true. In a food chain, it's usually true that there are more numbers of producers than primary consumers and more primary consumers than secondary consumers. In contrary to this, there might be some pyramids of numbers which contain more consumers than producers. So the pyramids in this case look inverted, upside down. This is how they going to be. Lyrebird, mailbag, acacia tree, flea, rabbit, grass. This is upside down due to their numbers. It is, however, necessary to know that both pyramids of energy and the biomass can never be inverted upside down. The biomass and so the energy available at each trophic level of the food chain is less than it was at the previous stage. This is true because of the following 2 very important reasons. The whole organism at one stage is not eaten by an organism at the stage above. When a plant is eaten, for example, by a herbivore, the whole biomass within the body of the plant is not going to be used by the herbivore, because some of it might be used by the plants themselves to release energy. This is their pyramids, how they look like. Dear students, now we reach to the last part of the lesson evaluation. There is a classwork. Please pause the video and copy those questions on your exercise book. Question number 1 is write biological level of organization. Question number 2, carnivores are also called blank. 3, Herbivores are classified as grazers and browsers. True or false? 4. What's trophic level? And lastly, blanks are animals which eat what is left by carnivores. When you come to answer the question, question number 1, write the biological level of organization. The biological level of organization is population, community, ecosystem, and biosphere. Question number 2, carnivores are also called predators. Question number 3, herbivores are classified as grazers and browsers. They are true. What's trophic level? It is the different feeding levels within a food chain, or the direct feeding level is called, in a food chain is called trophic level. Blank are animals which eat what is left by carnivore or retrievers, or they are scavengers like hyena and vultures. When you can summarize the total lesson, in general, we discussed about the definitions of an ecosystem, what ecosystem mean, biotic and abiotic, or biological and physical component of an ecosystem, food chain, which is direct feeding level, and indirect or complex feeding level relationship among organisms, and ecological pyramids, the trophic structures of an ecosystem, which is described in terms of pyramid of energy, number, and biomass. These are all what have been discussed in today's lesson. So there is lastly homework for you. Question number 1, what's the difference between phytoplankton and zooplankton, habitats and niche, aquatic and terrestrial habitat, phototrophic and chemotropic organism, ecology and ecosystem? List out or identifies the difference between them. And the question number 2, plot aquatic food chain by using trophic level diagram. So this is all about the homework and the students. So please copy or try to answer the review questions from page 203 and 211 for the next lesson for your own. Dear students, please copy and do all of homework and the review questions given in video lecture until to end up textbook. When class resume, homework will come. Stay home, stay safe, save lives. Thank you for your careful listening. Until we meet the next lesson or the last lesson of total of the year. Goodbye.